Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 647. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying, announced that he doesn't want to be immortal because he knows that Sean will say nice things about him posthumously. And of course, he's the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
That'll make a little bit more sense when you hear our discussion about Duo number 1, which is one of our topics this week. We're also going to talk about Blood Syndicate number 1. In our Speeding Bullets segment, we talk about this week's release of Shadow War Omega. We get real spoilery in that one, so I want to make sure you're aware. Speeding Bullets, a lot of times we try to tease books. In this one, just we were both passionate about the story. So if you haven't read Shadow War Omega, you're going to want to skip the Speeding Bullets segment in the beginning, just because of the fact that we talk about Shadow or Omega in some pretty big detail and spoil the events of that particular series. So I want to make sure that we don't ruin that for anybody. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Not only do you get good prices on comic books, but they have some neat statues, figurines, etc. And I'm right now looking at some of those Funko Pop stuff. We've got Peacemaker Funko Pop. And I'm looking at Eagly from Peacemaker, man. I'm like, that is outstanding. He gets his own Funko Pop. So, so it's 20% off, $9.59. Thank you, DCBS.
Do you have any of those?
I don't collect the Funko, but every time I look at some of these things, I'm like, I wish I got that. And Eagly, I'm like, how can I not get Eagly?
So it's impossible to collect all of them because there's so many of them now. But like when that Fan Expo was at Cleveland, oh my gosh, they've got like really cool like collector's edition Funkos that are put on by the conventions. Just some really cool stuff in Funko Pop. I have a bunch of them. I'm a casual collector of them, but I've collected them in themes. Like, I'm a big fan of the Kingdom Hearts game series, so I have a bunch of Funkos relating to that. I've got a couple Doctor Who Funkos. I've got a bunch of DC ones, a bunch of video game-related ones. The cool part about it is, and I've got some really cool Marvel ones as well, the cool part about the Funko Pops is you can collect them in all kinds of different themes and variations, kind of like comic collecting. They've really turned this into this awesome market, and I've really started to get very, very into them. I admit, anytime I go to a convention, I see new ones, I look at them, and I end up grabbing a couple and adding more to my collection. It's coming to the point right now where I'm like, where am I going to put all of these? And because I like displaying them. I've gotten really into the habit of, I like to display things, but I don't want them to be too cluttered. So I've been, I buy like little shelves and things, not just for Funkos, but for other statues and things that I have, trying to get these things displayed so they're not so cluttered together that you can't enjoy looking at them. And they look like they're meant to be displayed in a neat way. They're cool. I mean, they're a neat conversation piece because when people come over and they see them, they ask. They're really awesome. And I'm surprised at like anything you're into, television, film, comics, pop culture in general, there's likely a Funko about it. And multiple Funkos. So it's cool.
Are you displaying them in or out of the package?
Out. And, here's the thing, respect. I have friends of mine that collect everything, keep them in the package. I have friends of mine that get like 2 of everything. One is to open, the other's to display, to keep like protected. And all of it's valid. For me, I like to pull them out and put them in. I don't have any figures that are still in the cases, and that's not me being snooty saying I'm above that. I don't mean it that way. It's just not the way I collect. I like
you play with your toys.
I don't really. I display them more than anything else.
Come on.
No,
I know you. You're sitting there playing with it.
No, here's the truth. Everything you're saying, you're valid for your reasoning and thinking I would do that. So I'm not disputing you. I don't have the time. Here's the thing. I'm a video gamer. So that gets in the way of all that. So if I'm doing the do that you're talking about, it's when I'm playing a video game. I like displaying them. So like I've got Migos, for example. There's this figures toy company that makes new Migos. The new Mego-like characters. There's some of the DC characters that were not produced by Mego originally. So I have my Mego originals on my Batman Wayne Foundation. And I have some of the characters that have never existed before on there as well. What I did is I took one of those TV stands, with the 2-tiered where like you would put your DVD player and stuff, your cable box and whatever underneath. I took one of those and I have my Mego Wayne Foundation up on top. And I have, because it's multiples, 4 levels. And below it, I took the Batcave set that they have. Now I've bought 2 of these doggone Batcave sets. Because they had the one that was originally sold by Mego. Like it was a reproduction that Figures Toy did. Then they did one, it's the same style, but it's completely based on the Batman 66 show. So I've replaced the one that I had that was the Mego one with the one that's the Batman 66 theme one.
Nice.
And I've got my Crime Lab bus. As a kid, I played with it so much that I destroyed it. And I've got a brand new one now because they did a reproduction of those. And I've got that there. All that stuff's open. I got those stands that they've got. They've got these little black stands that go around the waist of the character, but then puts like a base at the bottom so you can actually stand them up and pose them. So I've got them that way. To a certain extent, everything you're saying about playing with it is valid in that sense that I'm making little displays out of it. But that's really the purpose. In my basement, for example, it's actually somewhat to your point. Somebody got me a Wayne Manor Lego set. And I've had it sitting in my closet for years. And it's this multi-piece thing. I'm gradually putting that together in the basement. But for the purpose of then displaying it afterwards. So I'm enjoying this stuff. But I wish I had I'm taking me forever to get this Lego thing done. Not because it's the time to sit down and do it. Yeah. It's not that I can't put together a Lego set. I'm doing it because I put together the Batmobile. Now I'm starting on the Wayne Manor itself. You do these things in stages. Yeah. And some of it's like doing it in stages where I have the cats not around me so they don't go to try to take the Legos and I'm missing a piece when I need them because there's some small pieces to these things. But I don't know, that stuff is great. And I love that nowadays to where you're going with this, you can make any of these collectibles. When you and I started podcasting, there was not as much swag as there is now, which seems crazy to say. There is so much product out there between statues and Funko Pops and action figures. There's ways to get pretty much anything you could ever want now in really cool reproductions. Like if you're going hyper realistic, where they look like actual, the actual superhero, you can do that. If you're looking for the Funko Pops, you can do that. You're looking for statues that are purely like with the intense detail that you would only get from a statue, you can do that. We're in an insane time of being able to get any kind of swag that you want. What do you do with, okay, you're like me. We've gone to conventions over the years. We've picked up things. I don't know what you pick up in your DCB service as far as swag and stuff, but when you get that stuff, what do you do with it? So you got my answer. I'm actually curious about that. What do you do with your own swag?
Depending on which it is, like the statues, I pull them out. I've got them on my bookshelves, and they're displayed. I'm with any of the cool action figures. I do keep them in the box, and it's more because I don't have a really good display for action figures. I've got Oracle. I've got a Barbara Gordon Oracle where it's awesome. They've got her chair and everything. And if I had a really good place to display her, I would take her out of the box. But right now she's sitting in the box on the shelf because that's a lot easier for that.
So, if you had a display area, then would you display her completely out of the package, or would you want some kind of protective?
I play with my toys. Okay, I would actually pull her out of the box, set her up, and have her. But I don't have a good spot for it. I keep thinking about in my computer. I'm looking around in my computer room, and I got to redo my computer room. And when I redo the computer room, I'm going to build a shelving area, and I already know where she's going to go. Yeah, I'm going to hang a shelf and pull her out of the box, put her on the shelf, but she'll be right by the computer. So where else would Oracle be but by the computer? But I haven't gotten a chance to redo my computer room yet. When I redo it, that's where she's going to go. And, different characters. I've got a couple of the other action figures that right now they're just away. I got to find a better spot for them. So, and I've got some of the black and white, these little mini black and whites. I've got a nice shadow box that they're in up on the wall. I'm like, oh, that's a cool spot for them. So, yeah. So I try to take out of the box if I've got a good spot for it. If not, I keep them in the box.
Yes, I got two places where I really focus. My podcast recording studio, which is, basically my computer room that you're mentioning, where I've got a lot of stuff displayed. And then my basement, like man cave area, where I've got a lot of stuff displayed. We have a case that's on the main floor. It's a curio cabinet that I have some Disney statues that I've collected. I'm a big Disney junkie. But I have some Disney statues there, which my wife and I both like, so I have those like on the main floor in our dining room. But that's really the only thing that's not contained in those two spaces I mentioned. My workout room in my basement, I've started putting up the photos that I get at conventions, if I get one with a celebrity or something like that, or a signed comic or signed artwork. I'm putting it in my workout room just because I'm running out of space in my podcast recording area and I don't want to take anything down. So I've started putting stuff in there just because it's kind of cool when I go to work out. Then I've got, again, my pop culture stuff located there. They're cool displays and takes areas where like there was blank walls and now puts in some interesting stuff that feels like it's strangely motivating when you go to work out and you're surrounded by all your fun geek culture stuff too. That part's kind of cool. Over at InStockTrades.com, they are your collected edition source, and there's some cool deals of the week. We got Batman Reptilians hardcover, which is $24.99, regularly 50% off, only $12.49. This is Garth Ennis and Liam Sharp. If you haven't read this book, do yourself a favor. It is stunning and just a great story. Superman, The Death and Return of Superman Omnibus Hardcover. This is the way to get this story if you have not read it or didn't read all of it. It's $150 regularly, 50% off, only $75. Superman, the Son of Kal-El, hardcover volume 1, The Truth, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. And the Teen Titans by Jeff Johns Omnibus Hardcover, 2022 edition, $150 regularly, 50% off, only $75. Those are some great deals of the week. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to remind people we are in the last few days of our contest. It ends midnight of June 8th, and it's a participation contest, so it's very easy for you to enter. All you have to do is participate in some way, whether it's our Facebook group, sending us a voicemail, doing some parodies of comic strips, Where's Whatnot Nows, sending us an email review of something, an email comments that you'd like to put on the podcast. If if you don't feel like, if you're like, hey, I'm not a phone voicemail person, but I'd like to share some comments to put on the show. Post anything anywhere relating to the show. I'm open-minded too, so if there's something I didn't list there, you're like, hey, I am participating, or hey, I am shouting out the show, or I'm doing this, and I feel like I should be in the contest. My goal with this one is really a thank you for all of you who have participated in ways that I know and ways that I'm not thinking about. We have 3 prizes. We have the Animal Man Omnibus Hardcover. That is one of, I think, an amazing prize. Batman Earth 1 Complete Collection Trade Paperback. The Superman 78 hardcover as well. And the first prize winner gets their first choice. The second prize winner gets the next choice of what's left. And then the third prize winner will get the remaining prize. But those were all ones that I picked because of the fact that they were upcoming releases. And they are books that I just feel are really excellent. So I'm hoping that these are prizes that will make people happy. But thank you for listening to the podcast and supporting us. And that's really what this contest is about. That contest will end midnight on June 8th. We're going to take a break for a few weeks, and I'd like to bring a contest back I'm going to look at this month's DCB service, seeing what's coming up, and I'm going to do another contest for the summer. We'll come up with something else. So we will have more details in a future episode, but there's still time to participate in this one. Mr. Segalin, without further ado then, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Hold on, Sean.
What?
Before we talk some comics.
What?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Brother Bill. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to my much, much, much older brother Bill.
I'm sure he's going to appreciate the much, much, much part. But
yes,
I will. I like your brother Bill a great deal, so I will also echo the sentiment of happy birthday to him.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring. And in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, let's jump into some news for this week. There's been a lot of stuff going on. And so DC Comics announced via Twitter that the trans superhero Dreamer is getting an original graphic novel. This is cool because it's written by Nicole Maines, who actually played the character on Supergirl. So, and it's drawn by Ryan Hickman. It looks really good. There's no release date yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing when that comes out. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the character. And Supergirl, when she was there, I liked how they handled her, and it was kind of neat, a neat character. Just as a general, just as a character goes, just who she was, what she was about, So I think that's going to be kind of a cool series. Looking forward to that.
There was the Gotham Knights trailer that's on our Facebook page, and I want to thank Jared Cardos for posting. Actually, a lot of this news is posted by Jared, so I want to thank him for just participating like this, because it's really helpful for us. What did you think of that Gotham Knights trailer?
Well, first off, I'm going to steal from Brad Young, who posted the comment, Gotham 90210. I thought that made me laugh out loud, the comments. Now, for me, I'm all in on this. I'm 100% want to give this a try, see what's going on. Comments of choices were made, yes. And I don't know, for me, I think I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I want to see what they're going to do with it, what they're going to actually... where this goes. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to feel about this, because they are doing 90210 is a great. Just again, it cracked me up because I was thinking that same kind of lines. How we've got these young heroes and or these young people all brought together because of the tragedy, the death of the Bat, and everything that's happening. And I loved 90210 when it first came out. I love those kind of shows. So I want it to be a superhero focus. I do like the kind of cop mystery discovery things. In a way, I was actually also thinking maybe the Scooby-Doo crew, with more of that, done in Gotham.
Riverdale
versus
too. It's very much Riverdale.
Yeah, Riverdale. Yeah. So I think you put all those things together, and you got a possibility of a good show. Yeah. Now, it's going to be the thing. We got to see where it goes. It doesn't look like it's going to be a dark, gritty, Arrow. But it's not going to be a joke of a show. So, because it looked like it had some solid moments.
So here's the basic premise: Bruce Wayne has been murdered, and he's been revealed as Batman. The son's pursuing the killer. It's Turner Wayne. And this is an original. I don't think Turner Wayne's appeared anywhere. If so, I'll have to think back. If that's a character name, I might be drawing a blank on something right now that I know about. But and he's a suspected person based on money. Bruce Wayne's wealth. There's a group of kids who were paid to break into the Wayne facilities, and that links them to the murder, and includes the Joker's daughter, Harper Row, Cullen, her brother. Carrie Kelly's also in the series as a Robin, with the idea of, he called her his Robin. She was his eyes. So this is definitely an Elseworlds thing, which I like. They're on the run from a corrupt Gotham PD. The Batcave's going to be used as basically not just as a base of operations, but they need a place to hide. And they happen to be lucky enough to have a fully functional Batcave that's under the radar. That even though Batman's been revealed, not all of his secrets have. So I think it's got a cool concept to it. I like them going, if they're going to do to the point of it being Gotham 90210, doing it Elseworlds is smart, because it does give you a little bit more freedom to kind of play around with it a bit. And I'm not against that. I think DC Elseworlds is pretty cool. I mentioned Riverdale just because I'm kind of excited for this, because I feel like, so when the Gotham TV show came out, that was its own little Elseworlds kind of thing, too. My father and my brother both watched and enjoyed it. My wife might watch this one with me, which I'm kind of excited about, that there's a show, with a DC theme to it that I think she'll like this one. At least on paper, from what it looks like. So I'm cautiously optimistic on this one, just because it's different and it's new and they're introducing new things. I want it to be really good, just because I want these DC shows to continue. It looks like it's set and it's completely in its own universe. Like right now, there's nothing that would indicate a link to any of the current Arrowverse stuff, which I think is not a bad idea either. Obviously, who knows over time what'll happen. But right now, I like the idea of it just being established with its own rules in its own world. So I'm optimistic about this one, at least from what I saw from the trailer. And the trailer's available. There's a link to it on our Facebook page. So thank you again to Jared for posting that. DC and Webtoons have teamed up for a new Vixen series. The first 3 issues are up now and free. Have you checked any of the Webtoons stuff out yet?
No, I keep meaning to. And it's one of those things where I got to sit there and find time and actually do this stuff.
Yeah. So it's cool. And the other stuff that they've had is really cool, too. So I would recommend checking out the link for Vixen. This is a great jump-on point to what Webtoons is doing in cooperation with DC. And there's a link again in the Facebook group page. Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Static are getting young adult novels in the spring of 23. I've been digging. I'm not reading every one of them. I've gotten most of them, though. It's a backlog that I have of them. I've read selected ones along the way, I'm currently reading that Green Arrow Stranded one that came out. I've enjoyed every one of these that I've read. So when I'm saying that I've read them like sporadically, it's a time thing. It's not a quality thing. There was the Oracle one, the Oracle Code that was out, which was really good. I've been along the way reading a number of them and really digging the output. So when you tell me we're getting one with Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Static, yeah, and I'm glad that they're catering to different audiences. They're trying to reach a different crowd. I look at these as things that'll pop up on potentially bookshelves at schools and things like that. And we have book fairs that come through. And it's the right age for some of our older kids, to be able to read and enjoy these. And I'm glad to see that they're just trying some experimentation with the comic book medium to appeal to a new audience. So I'm a big fan of these. I think they've been good. They clearly aren't written with me being the target audience, but I will say as a comic book fan, I really enjoy them. So they're really good quality, and I like that they're trying to reach different audiences. It's kind of like, you look back in the day when imprints like Vertigo and stuff came out. Vertigo was trying to reach a different demographic, a different crowd. It had something for your traditional comic fans too. I think these are doing the same thing. They're just looking at, hey, how can we reach this market? And it's a smart move. It's the young adult crowd that's looking at like manga and things like that nowadays. I think we're right at home with these, and I think it's really cool. It's good stuff. Thor Love and Thunder trailer's up there too with Christian Bale as Gore. Have you had a chance to watch this?
Yeah, man. I was like, again, I did not like the first Thor movie at all. I was like, okay. And then, and it's funny, you had the comment there about how sequels are getting better. Each sequel is getting better. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't normally work that way. The Thor movies are an interesting little beast. I'm in
agreement with that one. And this one, I think I may see this one in the theater.
Yeah,
I didn't see the other one in the theaters, but this one I really liked how it played out. And I'm like, again, Thor is a character or this version of Thor, the more I'm seeing of him, the more I'm liking. I like the fact that they did show the little training sequence when he gets back in shape and this and that. I was like, okay, all right, I'm digging this. Let's try this.
Did you see the buddy cop one with him and the Hulk?
Yeah.
was that Ragnarok? Am I right on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. That one was great. It's an example of where this series of movies has only gotten better as it's gone along. That was awesome. I really, really enjoyed that one. That's why I was like, I hope I got the right name because it was my favorite so far of the Thor ones. This one looks like it's going to have everything that I liked about that. Like they're keeping this going where they're building upon the Thor story. And I think the first one was, I didn't dislike it. It was a good movie, whereas I thought Ragnarok was a great movie. And it's interesting how this has had just this progression to it. And I think that's true sometimes of the ones where you're getting origin stories. The first one felt like a little bit more dry to me, but I loved it. I'm glad that I'm like, hell, I've seen a Thor movie. I mean, who thought that was, at the time when that came out, it's great. Boy, have they really made these movies with a lot more personality as they've come along, and it's really benefited the film series. And then I do want to shout out Scott Jameson over at skajam.com. It's skjam.com. Posted a review of Greg Rucka's excellent Queen and Country. Have you ever read any of Queen and Country?
No, I have not. And
Oh.
I probably am going to be. You know?
Yeah, I encourage everyone to check out the review. It's British Secret Service kind of spy kind of stuff. It's really, really cool. It's espionage, like Greg Rucka style. I'm not fully going into the depth and cool factor that is Queen and Country. And actually, Skajam's review, or Skajam.com, the review that you're going to read there, I think does a real excellent job of spending the time on it. You know, it's really, if I wanted to talk about it the right way, you know, it'd be something maybe down the road we could do as a something, you know, we'll do it like as a bonus show or something like that, do Queen and Country, because it's not DC, but it is incredible and really good. This week there's been some interesting releases that have come out. Shadow War Omega, and there is an epilogue in this that leads directly into next week's Dark Crisis. If you haven't read that series, is it like you have to read this or you won't understand Dark Crisis? I don't think that's the case, but I feel like if you've been reading this storyline, you're going to want to read this before you read Dark Crisis, because it basically takes the continuity of what's been going on in this particular crossover arc with Deathstroke and brings it up to speed. What did you think of the conclusion of Shadow War Omega?
Oh my God. Yeah. I absolutely loved it, you know, and because he's, you know, again, you know, love the fact that it was Geoforce was the villain.
Yep.
We kind of figured that one out, but again, love how they played it and eventually how they did the reveal. But, you know, killing off Deathstroke is not something I would ever said I wanted to see. That's something I never would have said, I hope they do that. I love that they did that. You know, especially because the tie-in and connection that's going on with Dark Crisis. I'm like, okay, I want to see where this plays out now. One of the things I was actually thinking was Respawn was going to be the one put in the Lazarus Pit, not Deathstroke.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought was going to happen. You know, but the fact that they did Deathstroke actually, you know, works for me. I'm like, okay, that's... You know, I don't know what's going to happen with this character. We have no idea what happens with the at the end of the Dark Crisis. So let's do it. Let's go with it, man. So I'm very excited for this.
The eulogy that we've already read from Free Comic Book Day actually lines up with that too.
Yeah,
because that would have happened after this. I'm glad that everything's lining up now. We're starting to understand where books are starting to catch up to continuity.
Yeah.
There were some great moments with Talia, the great moments with Damian and Bruce that I thought were just really well done. The idea of the Al Ghul legacy and the damage it has caused, but also the fact that Talia's like following what her father wished, you know, as far as turning herself in. But where is that going to ultimately lead? We don't know yet. So it was an interesting sort of story, and I really enjoyed this crossover quite a bit. At a time where I'm like, okay, now we're building to... And I guess in my mind, as I was reading it, I was like, well, this is great that Batman's got a crossover and, you know, it's kind of running concurrently with Dark Crisis. No, this is like leading right into it.
Right into it, yeah. Well, I love the fact that Bruce finally had that moment with Damian. Mm-hmm. You know, where he basically explained what he meant by, you know, and actually clarified what he said about with Alfred, you know, and how he took complete fault for it and this and that. And that was just a great father-son moment. And I was so happy that we finally got to see those Bruce and Damian moments.
Also,
we're getting to see the potential of a Batman and Robin. You know, and even at the end of the thing, he's like, no, this is a job for Batman and Robin. And I love the fact that we're just getting it. Now, again, it does, you know, speak to the life of being a Wayne in that they finally get this moment and we know Bruce is going to get taken away from him.
Wait.
So how is Damian going to react?
Batman versus Robin is still coming.
Yeah.
This is going to be a rocky road still.
Oh, yeah. But we got the layings of the foundation.
Sure. So it's going to be interesting to see where all that's going to go. Yeah, and then Bruce goes, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Again,
I'm still convinced at the end of Dark...
actually gone.
I'm still convinced at the end of Dark Crisis we're getting them all back.
I'm hoping that. I'll be honest, I'm hoping we get that. I'd love to see that happen where they all come back and it's the end of the Dark Crisis, reboots stuff and brings them back. I would love to see Alfred come back at the end of Dark Crisis, but I don't think he's going to yet. I think there's going to be a separate storyline of the return of Alfred.
And I want to be clear. I think at the end of Dark Crisis, we're getting back the Justice League that vanished. And that would include the Flash, Barry Allen. I'm the ones that vanished during the prelude to Dark Crisis. And by the way, this is just me kind of throwing out there what my thinking is. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm right. Right now, where my head's at is there's going to be something in that story. Because I think what we're going to find out in Dark Crisis, at least I'm hoping we do, this is my wish, what happened to them? Because we saw them vanish. When I say vanish, I mean they were dissipated, whatever you want to. But I feel like there's more to that. Right. And I feel like Dark Crisis is going to reveal what that is. That's the part I'm anticipating. And that might lead me on a different path where what we find out may redirect my thinking, shall we say. But I'm excited for that in Dark Crisis to find out what happened to them. Did you...
I still am wondering about Ollie. For me, he's the big wild card. I agree with you. The Justice League is coming back, but I wonder about Ollie. He's the only one I wonder about because he didn't get vanished. He got crushed. He got killed by Darkseid. Well, not Dark. The Doomsday.
My thinking on this one, and this is where I might be wrong. They've each got specials, and he has one. I think the fact that he has a special bodes well.
I'm hoping because I like Ollie, and I do want I want him back. So me saying I don't know if he's coming back is not me wishing it. I really do think end of the Dark Crisis, the Justice League is going to be back, and I'm hoping Ollie's among them, and I'm hoping Alfred is too, but I don't think so. I think Alfred will be a separate story, the return of Alfred. But that would be neat if they brought back Alfred and other people as well, like have some surprises for us, kind of like how Roy came back after. At the end of the one crisis, and we've gotten people come back after different crises where, like, where'd they come from? Like you think back to Blackest Night, when at the ending when they're like, live, and all those people came back. I'm wondering if we're going to have a moment like that where there's just this moment of reboot for people, and Alfred's one of the people who get rebooted. But I don't think that's going to happen, but I would love to see it. I would cheer for it.
So Justice League Road to Dark Crisis came out this week too, and this one I think it's a must-read. It's an anthology issue that has 5 stories. The first one is a team-up between John Kent and Dick Grayson post the death of the Justice League, basically them dealing with the aftermath of it, having their first team-up, see how like two very different people, the son of Bruce Wayne and the son of Clark Kent, deal with this differently based on who their mentor was and what they've learned from their mentor. And yet them, but it also does it in a unique way where John is not Clark. Dick Grayson is not Bruce, but they have certainly inherited certain character traits of them and have a chance to acknowledge that. It was really cool. It felt like two sons meeting and dealing with the aftermath of this in a way. It was very well written and really enjoyed the story. There is another one called Life of Purpose, and this story deals with the Flash family, dealing with Barry, and the fact that Barry had a disappearance in this one. There is a story in there that deals with Hal Jordan and the new Aquaman, and dealing with their... Hal didn't know. So this story starts to bring Hal up to speed on what's been going on with Dark Crisis. And then we've got a Pariah story that leads right into Dark Crisis. Interesting sort of collection of stories, and if you missed this one, I would go and grab it, because each one of these short stories are really good primer reading for next week's Dark Crisis. Just kind of giving you an update on where everyone's at. I liked that. I felt like walking out of this, I had a pretty good lay of the land between actually the two events. What's going on with the heroes and where the villains are at least to start. There was a cool ad in there, too, for the Poison Ivy series. I don't know if we mentioned that before, that it's going to be a series. G. Willow Wilson writing an ongoing Poison Ivy series. We may have. I'm almost positive.
I didn't know it was an ongoing.
Well, it looks like it's going to be an ongoing series with G. Willow Wilson writing It was on page 2 of this. Let me go back.
Yeah, I just opened it up. I'm looking. Neat.
That's a series, right? That's how they're pulling it.
It looks like it. There's
monthly.
Nothing that says limited or anything like that.
Yeah, it says monthly in June.
Yeah.
G. Willow Wilson. Remember Air?
Yeah.
I loved Air. And I mean, I'm underselling how cool G. Willow Wilson is, but that was like the first series that I read that G. Willow Wilson had written, and I just was blown away by how cool that was. Anything G. Willow Wilson does now, I became a believer of, okay, this is a writer that I just want to follow. So, doing Poison Ivy? Yes, please. Thank you. That's the great part. When you announce a series with a character that you really enjoy that has a very complex story, but then you know that you've got somebody with the chops to be able to deliver something that's intriguing, and you know they're going to give you a new lens into a character. I'm like, all right, this is cool.
The tagline for it: humanity had its chance. Now it's time for Poison Ivy.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're going to get a pretty cool Poison Ivy out of this.
I'm very in on this one. I think this is really cool. We got a lot of stuff coming. This is an interesting time. I think DC's putting out like some really cool stuff. Did you see this week that Joe Quesada is leaving Marvel?
No, I did not see that.
So yeah, there's not. It doesn't look like there's any kind of controversy. It looks like it was just a decision. Like it's time, meaning that he was very involved in the decision. It was a decision he made with his family, things like that. And I don't know. I'm not going to read into if there was anything behind the scenes or anything, because I'm not seeing anything like that. And the only reason why it's sad that I've got to open with that, because of the fact that people retire from things. People leave things that they've done for a long period of time. They're like, I made my mark, it's time. And it sounds like that's all this is, in a good way. The reason why I feel it's worth noting, and I wanted to get that nonsense out of the way and get to it, he really made a mark over at Marvel. My first exposure to Joe Quesada's work was the work he was doing over at Valiant on Ninjak. They were doing some really cool things at Valiant at the time with color, with art. They had this Valiant Vision 3D kind of thing that was going on, and there was all the books at that time that were coming out, or at least most of them. You could wear these Valiant Vision 3D glasses, and they had this really awesome 3D effect, and it was just something neat that was going on. Ninjak was a great series, and the artwork was stunning. Well, this is somebody that, he went and did independent comics, went and did, big name comics from both publishers, sort of Azrael being one of them, over at DC. So Joe Quesada's been involved in a lot of things as a creator behind the scenes. And then took over at Marvel, and really, during his tenure at Marvel, look at everything that's happened at Marvel. I'm talking comics, straight up comics. Obviously, Marvel's had an explosion across media, which has involved a lot of people. But the comics proper, there's been some really big-name creators who've done some really big-name events under his tenure and made real big marks. And there's been lines of comics that have come spinning out of that. I just thought it was worth noting, very similar to how when Dan Adio left DC, we wanted to talk about that. I just wanted to mention it real quick, even though we're a DC podcast. He's certainly somebody that has touched the larger comic world, and I wish him well. And honestly, it's one of those things where I do not want to in any way, shape, or form imply there's any controversy. It stinks that I have to start with that, because I think nowadays when something gets posted online, it immediately jumps to that. And I don't know that there is anything. I'm hoping not, just because he's somebody who deserves to be able to go out. One of the dangers nowadays of the internet is sometimes we find out little tiny bits and pieces of things that we shouldn't have, and we ignore what we really should be saying. This man made a mark. Thank you for the mark that you made. And whether you loved everything that was outputted at Marvel or not during that time, you cannot argue with the fact that there was a lot of really great comics that spun out of Marvel during his tenure. A lot of great experiments that came out of Marvel during his tenure. And I applaud him for that and wish him nothing but the best. Kind of cool.
Oh, no, you don't!
First discussion this episode is going to be on Duo, issue number 1. Greg Pak, it's Khoi, Fam, Pham, Scott Hanna, Chris Sotomayor, and Janice Chang. Apologies for any name butchery there. I really wanted to talk about this one first. It was a series that surprised me. I was a big fan of Valiant's The Second Life of Dr. Mirage. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying at all that this is the second life of Dr. Mirage. I'm saying that this has what I liked about that. And it was this interesting relationship between two people where very early on you get drawn to this relationship of this couple that are scientists, that are experimenting with nanotechnology to just make the world a better place. The idea is we want people to live longer. We want people to live a quality life. We're trying to build nanotech that takes away aging, takes away death, takes away pain, takes away, all of these things. And it's the great promise. With that comes some ethical and moral issues, also some financial concerns. And this book is really smart in what it deals with. And it has the typical, there's money to be made from this type of thing. It could obviously be weaponized. It could obviously be corrupted. And this story's really driven to that. I just, coming out of the starting gate, with it being a brand new series with brand new characters, so it's beyond Dakota City and Milestone, and this takes place on Earth M. Get this great story, and the two main characters are absolutely captivating. At least that was my experience with this one. I could not put this down. Like, I'm hoping this one winds up being an ongoing, like where we get more and more duo, because I really liked this out of the gate.
Who wants to live forever, Sean? That's the question.
Yeah, I get it. This is Highlander, but it's
No, but seriously, that was actually one of the things that did pop in my head, because everything you're talking about with the healing and this and the extending and just at the end where we get an introduction of immortals and stuff. I love the fact that they're looking at this. I love this. This again was one of those stories that I had no idea what was coming. As soon as I read issue 1, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Let's see where this goes. I love the fact that it's now Earth M. It's its own little separate universe, so we don't have to worry about other influences and other characters. They're on their own ways. I'm like, that's awesome. And the concept of immortality is something that I always love those things when people look at that, because in a way, I personally would never want to be immortal. That, I think, would be horrific. To me, that would be more of a torture than a gift. Because, with the world decaying and this, we need to have a life cycle. We need to live, we grow old, we die. Yes, let's have the circle of life. This concept, this notion, of immediate regeneration and just all that kind of, where does it end? Because how do if we never grow old, we never die, the population will just keep growing and growing and growing. You have to have population control. It's a horrific way to look at death, but it is a way, it is a fact of life that, we only have room and resource for so many things. So these are all thoughts that's just flocking through my head. On top of that, we got this cool concept of this husband and wife who they already complete each other's sentences. They know
engaged.
Each other so well.
They're not married. They're engaged.
Right. Yes, but I'll be honest with you. I look at them as being married.
But they're not.
They look at themselves. What?
But they're not.
I know, but there are times when okay, so for me, the term husband and wife goes beyond what the legal...
I understand, but they're not. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But seriously,
husband and wife I'm teasing, go ahead.
That. It goes beyond that legal, matrimony. And the thing I love is these two, I'm looking at them that way. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at them, but I know there's going to be issues with them being in each other's head. Think about it. Any couple, you do need to have that apart time. You do need to have those moments when you're not with each other 24/7. inside each other's brains. And I love the fact that this did get brought up when they're talking about downloading consciousness and looking at people's, actually seeing what someone's thinking and just, that complete connection, that complete connectivity with each other. On one hand, you're like, hey, that'd be awesome. No secrets, no lying, no deception. But on the other hand, like, do you really want to know everything that goes on inside my head? Well, and I don't think anybody would want to know everything that goes on inside my head. But really, with people, I think that's these were stuff that concepts in issue 1 that already got addressed and already got brought up. And I love the fact that that's what they did with this introduction episode. They're already laying some foundations on where this story could go. And that really got me thinking. That's why, like you, I want this to be an ongoing because there's so many different things they can do. One, just seeing them get a control of the power. Then once they get control of the power, how do you use it? How do you interact? How do you have those moments when you do want to have that separation? And it's, can it be reversed? Could we ever get her back again? There's so many side stories that just issue 1 opened up in my head that I'm like, I want this to be an ongoing series.
It's funny, and I was being a pest before, but taking the joking out of it, I agree totally with where you're going with the concept of what makes a couple a couple, what really makes a couple married. There's the ceremony and all that, which is a formality. What makes people linked like that, it's a promise, it's a commitment, there's also an unspoken piece that brings them together, and you see the romanticism of that with this couple. This is a couple that's intertwined and linked not just physically, but emotionally. And I love that it opens with a sequence with David and Kelly just talking to each other. And it was really well written, where you get this idea of the two of them, that this is the way that they view love and they view each other. The way you look at me, looking at you. I wrote a poem about that once. Before I ever really knew what it meant, I forgot my name, but remembered yours, and that answered every question. And they have this kiss from it. It was like, you get the idea that for them, all of that is just really genuine at its core. And it's just the first page and a half, but it was really important to establish that right from the get-go, that's not due to nanotechnology or anything else. They have this kind of relationship. Now, to the point of what you said earlier, you don't want to be in somebody's head, because we all have those moments. There's a lot of things that go, you don't want to be in my head at all. But I don't want to be in my head a lot of times. But the truth of the matter is, we all have thoughts where it's sometimes processing. It's thinking things out. There's things that we think that, like, we course correct and edit and drop and let go of and change that, quite frankly, people should never know or even crossed our minds, because of the fact that there's a reason you kick ideas and concepts to the curb, because they should be. It's better that those things are left to be, my mind went there, and then it went far, far away fast. That says something. And you could see how that would be traumatic in any form of friendship, any form of relationship, to know too much. Just because of the fact that we all have moments. We have moments where emotion will dictate our thought process. You're cranky, you're upset, you start saying things in your mind. You feel things about people in your mind that, like, aren't genuine, but they're reactionary to a moment, to a thing. Somebody bumps into your car accidentally or something like that. You're basically want to, take that person down and say a lot of things to them that you don't actually mean. Then afterwards you're like, oh, this is my friend, or this is whatever. You walk away from that moment and you're in a different place than you were for maybe that half hour. That's just one example of, something where events and circumstance can lead you to say and feel things internally, hopefully, or even outwardly, that should be isolated to sections. I love how this story addresses that you two, are exploring this nanotechnology, and that CEO is bringing that to their attention, where it's like, listen, you may think you want to know all this stuff, or you may think this is a great thing, but the finishing each other's sentences and things that you do, that's cute and all, but do you really want that? And this series explores that. It gets caught in his head. That doesn't look like it's going anywhere. anytime soon, if at all. And that's going to be an interesting piece to navigate. And she's actually trapped in a horror story where this is a painful experience for her. She is completely in the background. He has the option to be in the foreground, whereas the only connection she has with him, the only dialogue she has with him is the internal component of it, which is a scary, scary concept. It's going to be interesting to see how this couple navigates through that. It's a different kind of relationship when you have that. They certainly seem like a strong enough couple that they can figure out how to make this work. It's what a tragedy, because I really liked them when it happened. I'm like, oh, I hate the fact that I liked them in page 1 because you know something nasty is going to happen to them. I didn't know what it was going to be.
I wonder, has there ever been a comic where a couple had a happily ever after?
I would say some of the Flash comics and things like that have. I mean, if you take a look at Barry and Iris, it depends on what you define as happily ever after.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean, because I think what more accurate is we've had couples that have had long-lasting marriages in comics, but they've had their ups and downs, like any marriage does. So there is that realistic. I don't know, maybe Jay Garrick and his wife?
Yeah, I think maybe that's... Yeah, they probably have. And again, Lois and Clark have had their moments. They've had those moments. But again, you have those peaceful moments, but then you're going to get the chaos and you're going to get the craziness. And
the Earth 2, Lois and Clark had a happily ever after.
Okay.
Remember the ones that came back for Infinite Crisis? They had Earth 2.
That ended horribly for Lois.
But in Earth 2, if you looked at like traditionally the Earth 2 story beforehand, that was, I guess you're right. That kind of, unfortunately, Infinite Crisis kind of took that to a crazy place. I guess, what do you define as happily ever after?
I don't know. Like you, I like these people. I was like, man. And then I love when he finally does get that connection and he does finally see her. You know, how, again, she is tortured. And he's like, no, and you can see just how he wants to help her. Yeah. He wants to save her, and he can't right now. And it's just this whole desperation he's got going on. And I love, again, this was a really cool art usage as well as the story being told and how he's just grasping at trying to save her and she's reaching out. And I love that. It kind of had that scramble, mindset was going through where they're just like, it's that, again, I said desperation. I'm going to say it again. They're like, what do we do? We got to figure this out. And again, it's that strength of the couple. How, they want to save each other. And I love just those moments in the end. Again, at the beginning of the book, you're like, oh, this is a sweet couple. I want them to be happy. And then they just go through this horrific experience. And by the end of the book, she's desperately clinging to life inside his head. And I love the fact that he's like, hey, let's go to Healerist. They've got facilities. She's like, no, they're the ones who did this. So the people who could probably help them are also the ones who did this. I'm like, oh, this is an awesome beginning of a story. Right there, this book could have ended with that notion, with him sitting on the park. But then you flip the page, and you get the introduction to these immortals, these other people who are this company, who are this, the Healerist Inc. So I was like, again, 100% love this book. Great way to start off a series. Had me wanting an ongoing and not just a limited for these people because there's so many different things they can do. Plus, it was a great story being told.
One of the things I really enjoyed was you see them in San Francisco where they're walking, in some of the areas where people are down and out, where they're dealing with medical issues, physical issues. They're dealing with alcoholism, drug use. Things like that where it's put them on the down and outs and they don't really have a pathway to dig themselves out of that. And they give money to this one guy. And, there's a guy who's sitting here saying, where he's got hives and he's, they're saying, here, sorry to hear that. And they give him money. And he's like, careful flashing that around. Everyone will want help. And they're like, don't worry, they'll be back and that everyone will get help. They're thinking, like with their nanotechnology, there's going to be a chance for them to not only help the world with their tech, but also with the money that they get from this tech, not knowing that they're going to say no.
Yeah.
But still believing in their concept that, like, hey, we're going to be able to take this technology and we're going to be able to still, on our own or with another sponsor, make money off of this and actually be able to do some good, not only with our skills, but with the finances that we make. So they mean that. I mean, I really get the idea that there's just good people that are like, hey, anything that we can do, we're going to try and help others. I like that. Those are people that you want to see succeed because, you know, like they're going to, like on their path that they were going on, they are going to live a good life, potentially, but they also are going to be able to do good things. That's like the ultimate success that you want to see people have. I love the idea of this immortal group that's sitting here saying that humanity in general is not ready to handle all this. You know, we're better suited to handle this. They don't know what they're doing. Their idea of what saving the world is interesting because they don't want people living forever. They don't want people becoming like them. They feel like they're like this council that has the right to make these decisions and to be puppet masters, but it does threaten their world. Think about it. If everybody could live forever, eventually there's going to be people that surpass them, right? Or wind up on their level, and there's less of a need for them to be this governing body that they've self-nominated themselves. It's such an interesting concept. There was a lot going on in this first issue that are things that you can start building off of in your mind that isn't explicitly stated on the page, but you can start thinking through, like, who named them judge, jury, and executioner? And I like that. I mean, I'm going to be anxious to see where this story goes. And there's a lot of solid foundation for this to turn into something. I hope this one does really well because I really, really liked this first issue. And like you, I don't care if it's mini, where this is season 1, mini 1. I'm hoping we get more of this. I want Duo. This is the kind of experimentation I love in comics. It's when somebody comes up with a concept that makes you go, wow, this is really different than anything I'm reading right now. And I just want more of it. And I want others to read it. So many of my favorite comic book stories over the years are ones where it's a concept that surprised me. This is a great example.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Our next discussion is on Blood Syndicate, issue number 1. It's written by Jeffrey Thorne, pencils by Chris Cross, inks by Juan Castro, color by Will Quintana, letters by And World Design, cover by Dexter Soy and Veronica Gandy, old school variant cover by Chris Cross with Will Quintana, new school variant cover by Nicholas Draper Ivy, and the 125 variant cover by Rahaz, Rahzzah. Editors are Chris Conroy and Marquis Draper. Reginald Hudlin and Denny Cowan are producers for Milestone Media. And Blood Syndicate was created by Dwayne McDuffie, Derek Deagle, Denny Cowan, and Michael Davis. And apologies for name butchering there.
Issue, episode, opening remarks.
Everybody knows what I said.
Proof of concept. It's like I was laughing at you. I do it all the time. So this was cool. This one I was really anticipating because I've heard good things about Blood Syndicate. And I've never read Blood Syndicate before. So this is my first foray into Blood Syndicate. As an introductory concept to Blood Syndicate, I really liked this. I didn't know what to expect walking in. I knew it was going to be a Milestone team book. I'm liking the fact that each one of these new season 1s is expanding the world of Dakota City and its suburbs and things like that, linking to it. And that part's really growing for me. Also, the idea that this is a world where superheroes are coming on the scene. We are, especially in the area that they're at, when they left to go to war, there were no superheroes. They've come back now, and that's a thing now. And it's not just 1 or 2, but the fact that 1 or 2, and it deals with this idea, it's actually a concept that we hear a lot in Justice League, this idea that these larger heroes are dealing with the big events, but what it's leaving in its wake is a vacuum for smaller crimes, smaller gangs, things like that, to now try to take power, try to grow, try to continue to do things. And they're things that would fly under the radar of your larger heroes because they're dealing with so many big, world-shattering issues. And I love that this explores that and really comes out of the gate that, like, this power vacuum that you left, well, yeah, what about all these gangs here?
Yep.
I loved that. I love the opening setting talking about war and what war was like, because it sets a background of what these people have been through and why when they come back, they're trying to figure out how to interact with the world in general and each other. There are some things that have happened that have changed the viewpoint of some of the people that were on these missions together, that they don't trust each other, or they question each other, or they've come back and they have different religious beliefs where they had to find a way to cope with what they went through. And I like that there is this idea of what they went through was traumatic and survival, and they made choices that have impacted them, where there's the after effects, which I like that concept, where it's not just like they were in. Sometimes film glorifies, and they actually reference film. It because they're talking about that Black Hawk movie, and basically the idea of film will sometimes glorify what ends up happening in these places, and you don't have enough time to talk about the fact, well, what happens afterwards? When you try to embed yourself back in society. And that's not an easy path. And I respect that. I respect that this is bringing that up, because it's not something that I can speak to. So I love when story through fiction will start to address some things that are reality, and you start to respect, wow, what people go through, when we thank people for their service and thank them for what they've gone through, you look at stuff like this and go, this is why we should thank them, because not everyone comes back the same as when they left. Because of it. And usually most people are changed on some level because of what they've experienced, of what they've been through. And there's after effects to that. And I liked that this addressed that very early on. It's subtle, but it hits you when it does.
Yeah. These are the kind of stories that really hit me hard. Just because of everybody I've known and know, my family, and just, PTSD is huge. It's something that people throw out and people know about, but I don't think the general population really understands how severe it is within any member of the military and their families, and people who have who've actually seen active combat, people who have not seen combat. There's variations, levels of this kind of how it affects people, and I really loved seeing again. The fact that they're talking about it and they're bringing it up and it's getting played into who these characters are, what they're about. I love that. I thought that was actually outstanding. And that's something I'm like, okay. And it's, when you think back when we talked about Duo, how I was thinking about all the different stuff, possible storylines that can go. Same kind of thing happened with Blood Syndicate. I was thinking how there's going to be variations on the story. And I love the fact that right from go, we're introducing possible concepts, possible ideas where this story can go to. That was something that really just hit home for me. I'm like, okay, I understand why everyone kept saying, this is a book we need to have. This is a book we need. Yeah, it's got some cool action stuff in there. So that's, you got to love a book. But when they start laying the groundwork for some deeper thoughts and deeper concepts and ideas, those are the kind of stories that really make you go, oh, this is going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. So right from jump, we got another book that I was like, yes, this is cool. I'm loving Earth Elm. Absolutely love this planet. Love how they're doing this. It's gotten me motivated to go back and read the original stuff. Yep. And I think that, for me, is a huge statement of quality, where where the current stuff has you going, I want to read more. That happened with me in The Flash. I really did a deep dive on The Flash going back because of all the cool stuff happening currently with The Flash and all that. I'm starting to do a deep dive into this, this whole universe. And again, I didn't read anything at all. So this was my introduction to these characters. Within one issue, I was like, I got to know more. So that's, again, outstanding story. I can't more highly recommend this book than what I'm doing. And it's something that's just outstanding. I'm loving it, man.
It feels different. And I think that's pretty important. We read a lot of comics, right? And, and I'm not just talking about you and I'm talking about our listening audience. We all read a lot of books. So when I'm jumping to something, I want it to be something different. Both of the books that we were talking about in this episode are really, really fresh. They feel different. They add something to my reading library. That's fun. I mean, it's nice when you read, your comfort food of favorite characters that you've been reading for years and years and years, and their ongoing stories, especially when they hit a home run. It's always great to see those characters have a progression, right? Well, besides just reading them, it's like watching a streaming service, right? There's always that new discovery of like this cool new thing that you're watching now, and you're like, I am glued to this. This is a great example of a book like that. I love when we're seeing the first shot in Dakota City, where they're just coming back and they're at that transit authority. They're just talking about like going first to get some food from Papa Papa's. Yeah. And, I get the idea of like when you come back, you're like, I want comfort food. I want the things that I couldn't have elsewhere. The things that feel like home that you would immediately gravitate towards just because it grounds you. And that sense of let's get together, let's hang out, let's have that camaraderie, and let's start to try and decompress. Build a normal? Because, we all look for that, right? What is our normal? Even if you move somewhere, you eventually want to establish a sense of normal. That coming right out of the gate is a thing. But you also get the sense that not all is right in the world because there's three of them walking out together. One of them's like, I'm not hanging with him. And I get that you want to hang with him, but I'm not ready to do that yet. There's some things that have happened that I'm just not ready to let go. And it's Hannibal, who has... In order to deal with the situation, it's real clear that Hannibal's found some religion, kind of gotten an idea of who he wants to be, isn't ready to just kind of jump into, like, let's be buddy-buddy again and ignore everything that has happened leading up to this. And that's a thing. That leads to, though, the conversation that they're having. The two of them go to this, and they're talking about the gang war that's going on. There are major gang wars that are going on as people are trying to find power in that vacuum that I was mentioning earlier. And I love that concept of, yeah, we've got these great heroes that are doing these cool things, but drive-by shootings are a thing. And, gangs trying to take control in a superpowered world where we have got members of these gangs that have powers. Yeah. And that's something that's really interesting because you have power. You can see it's a different take on supervillains rising up, right? And it's more street level on this one, where it feels more grounded in reality. I hearken this to like, okay, so there's a certain style to DC Comics, and Marvel at its best has its own unique style. And then, and I'm oversimplifying, but Milestone has a different grounding to it at its best with these stories. And I feel like it's a different flavor. Like I'm reading DC, I'm reading Marvel. I'm not just reading them. I'm reading other books too. But I'm talking about if you look at those three companies and just their superhero universes, they have a different flavor. It has to do with a different kind of grounding to each one. And I think there's an identity that begins to be established in the Milestone books that I'm really enjoying. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like it feels like its own take on like, let's look at superheroes from this angle. Because there's like this template of this is where from the core are, and that's one of the things when you look at Dwayne McDuffie and all the people behind the scenes, and I'm not trying to insult anybody behind the creation of Milestone because it was such a team effort that created Milestone back then. If you look at what the original architects of Milestone did, it's clear in this new reboot, this new relaunch of Milestone. They're going back to the core of it, but also taking a look at how do we make this feel very today? And that's where they're succeeding. This feels like it's happening now.
Big time.
It feels like I could see this on the news. And that's something that's really awesome, where this appearing on television, you could make these work as dramas right now, and it would totally be watchable. I won't be surprised if we eventually see that, where we see one of these launch into a TV series. And I'm not talking about Static. I'm talking about some of the other characters, just because of the fact that I think there's some interesting concepts here that would really work on television.
I'll tell you, one of the things I was thinking is the show of Earth M.
Yep.
Where it's not just one of the characters, but all of them. Because they're doing a brilliant job with having everything interconnected with each other. You don't need to read the other stories, but if you're reading them, you get something extra. Like we saw Icon and Rocket's war on the street level drugs in their book. Well, we're seeing ramifications here. We saw Static and Static and what he's going on and his connection to the other character. And we're seeing those other things where you don't need to just read their book. If you don't need to read their book to understand the book you're reading, but when you read all of them together, you're getting the full picture, the full story of this Earth. And I think that is something that they're really doing well with these books, where it's a nice blend of now you know the rest of the story. You know, we're good to go just reading Blood Syndicate, but if you want to see the Icon and Rocket war, guess what? Pick that up, and they're doing these great connectabilities to it. So that's the other thing that I absolutely loved while I was reading this, because I'm loving Icon and Rocket. That for me is just an absolute, another brilliant book that I was like, oh man, yes, okay, So this connection to me is something that I'm loving. And there's the one scene I love when he first sees, Rocket, and he first sees that, and he, you see him jump up, and he's looking, and part of it is amazement, but knowing who this guy is, we learn who he is later on. Part of me is wondering if he's getting ready to power up, and that was something my second read through, because I didn't know anybody, didn't know who he was or how he was going to play into this, but he's got powers. So it's just seeing him lined up there, the way he's standing, I'm like, oh, he was getting ready to power up. That's awesome.
I'm going to say no, he wasn't.
You don't think he was?
No, because they're trying to fly under the radar.
Oh, okay.
Because think about it. They got Holocaust who's coming after them. So they're trying to fly under the radar. They're a secret group. Think about why Holocaust is going after them. So I think the Holocaust part is no, he's not doing that, because that would be a beacon.
Well, he doesn't know about Holocaust yet. I'm not talking about Hannibal. I'm talking about the other guy. I'm talking about
yes. Wait, hold on. Yes, maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry. I will.
Yeah,
that's not Hannibal. That's not Hannibal at the table. Remember, Hannibal left.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. You're right. The guy powering up with the gun.
Yeah. Because you see him standing, the way just his pose, that to me looks like he's getting ready to power up. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
I don't know. I guess I didn't take it that he... Well, here's the thing. There's no right or wrong to this one. I didn't look at it as him trying to power up. This is just how I took it. It's not... I can see why you got there, and yes to what you're saying. But I looked at it more as... I don't... Like, shell shock. What he saw around him with Icon and everything, or Rocket, I should say. I don't know that he had the chance to even think of reacting to it. Because of the fact that, like, you're seeing a superhero for the first time, and it's kind of like you're just watching this, like, what am I seeing?
Yeah. Whoa!
Except the piece where I'll agree with you, with the military background and the fact that you've been likely surrounded by so many things that you're like, what the heck is going on around me? Maybe it would lead to something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, and explosions, things like that, you get reactions.
Yep.
Again, and I like how he even talked about how it's not every day, but when it hits the fan, it hits it. And that's something that you're used to, you're trained to, you've had reaction to, where as soon as it's go, it's on immediately. And that's why I'm looking at that way, where he's up, he's ready, and he's I don't know. Again, maybe I'm reading more into it, but it was just something that and again, it's the way the guy's crafted, in that we're seeing them. Because earlier on the fight sequence, you saw them. They go, when it was go time, they immediately fired up and they immediately reacted, and that's something that I know combat troops have gone through a lot of times, where you're moving along, and the next thing you know, 1 second it's one thing, the next second, boom, the world explodes, and you don't have time to think. You have to just react. You just immediately go into combat mode, and you're immediately fighting. And I think that for me is one of the neat things about this character. Knowing his background, knowing where he's coming from. From what little we know, I'm taking personal knowledge on people who have actually, who've been in combat and stuff like that, and I'm applying it to this. So I think that for me is something that's just so well crafted in this that I'm already making these assumptions on this guy. One of the reasons I love this book.
I love the view of Icon in this book, because it establishes the idea that Icon's the Superman of this universe. And you get the idea that they view him as this ideal, even in the street art. Where you see like the glowing around his fist and just the way that he's drawn as this like symbol, where it's almost the legend of Icon like has grown bigger than even Icon is, which Icon's amazing, but you see how they look at him as this symbol, and he brings hope, and I like that idea of the street art bringing that in as a thing. It feels very real, and it's cool to be in a world like that. I talked a little bit about Holocaust, but you get this idea of Holocaust is this big, imposing character, not just in physical stature, but also in power. And this idea of fear and intimidation being a driving force in these gangs, where it's like, listen, you're either with me or you're against me. And it's against me in the sense that even silence or ambivalence is against me. You are either with me or you're not. And that's like it. So them hiding out, them running, them hiding out superpowered people in, this group and things like that, trying to build this force. I know that behind the scenes, if these superpowered people keep hanging out together at this shelter, ultimately in the end, they're going to come after me. They need to be stamped out now. And anybody that's there that has any form of power needs to join up and understand that I'm in charge here, or else I'm going to stamp them out because they're potential opposition. This is a power play, and it's also a chance to recruit. Because at the end of the day, if you can keep people intimidated, working for you, they can do your work, create your legend, make Holocaust even bigger than he is. It's a creepy sort of approach, but it's working. I like how the reunion with Sarah leads to the first drive-by shooting in this, and that's where we get to find out that he has, not Carlos, but the other guy. I feel bad. I feel like I should know everyone's names by now. Rolando. Yeah. Rolando has that power where he can manifest these weapons, and I want to know more about how that power works because the gun is awesome. And what I love about it is sometimes you see these giant guns that are put into comics where, it's like, how are they carrying those things around? How does that even work? In this case, it's not that he is. It's that these things manifest it's almost digitally it's manifesting itself. Where he has this giant gun now that is able to just do these amazing things. I want to know more about what Rolando's powers are. Does Sarah have... I can't tell if Sarah has powers too, right? She's vanishing. Is that what's happening here?
She's either a teleporter or she's a speedster. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
But because he tells Sarah to go.
Right.
Rolando pulls up the big gun, but I think he can do other weapons because there's a picture of him at the end of the book where he's got a completely different weapon. So I'm assuming he can pull up other types of, it's not just that big gun. He can do, other types of things. And of course, the other guy, he can phase. So I think each of them had meta power, has a meta power.
Yeah, and that's something that, it matches too why Holocaust would be either wanting them to join or be stomped out.
Right. Well, that's a neat concept for the villain. We've got this massive powered guy, where he's also, though, he's intelligent. He does have a level of strategery to him. And I like that. I like big, powerful, intelligent villains. Mm-hmm. You need to have that. And especially because he's got his crew, he's going to be going up against this crew. The jury is still out whether this crew is actually good guys or bad guys or just surviving. Because they even talk about that, how depending on where you're born, what neighborhood, it's what crew you're in. If you're born in this one neighborhood, you're either with them or you're against them.
Yeah.
And this, he's a different neighborhood. So it's that same kind of gang ideology going on applied with meta-powered people. So I love that notion, that concept, because again, I don't know we definitely know Holocaust is a villain. 100%. I'll bet money that he's a villain. I still don't know about Carlos. Still don't know whether he is his own gang or whether he's protecting people. And I think that is a neat concept and a neat idea because you look back to the original concept of the gangs. They were originally neighborhoods who banded together to protect people in the neighborhood. You took care of the neighborhood. You protected yourselves. And then things kind of got twisted, and the criminal elements started coming into the gangs. Drugs and prostitution, whatnot, all the nasty stuff that they're getting involved with. And as time went on, the term gang became something synonymous with criminal organizations. It became another way to say organized crime. And it's interesting because you look back to the very originals, the origins of some of the more famous gangs out there. They were actually neighborhood protection, and they were there for the people. So with Carlos, I don't know, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I don't know, and I think that's kind of neat.
One of the things my take on Carlos is this. I think Carlos is a survivor. And I think he's trying to do the right thing, not only for himself to survive, but the people that he's protecting to survive. I think as a survivor, what we're going to find out in Carlos's backstory, and it's the reason why Hannibal has such a problem with him earlier on in the book, I feel like Carlos has done things to survive that have been questionable or have led to questionable results. Where maybe with the best of it, and sometimes that's with the best of intentions, you screwed up, or it led to a catastrophe, or led to a problem, or led to choices. We're going to find out more of the backstory on this, and I think that's going to clarify where Carlos falls on that spectrum, because it's a wide spectrum. I do think right now he's trying to do the right thing, or they're on the run, they're trying to survive. He's not just looking out for himself, because he got her to survive, and he got him to survive through his actions. So he's being smart with what he's doing. It's Rolando, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he and Rolando both survive because of the phasing that he does. And this is one of the things, this tells you how fresh this book is. I'm still wrapping my head around everyone's names, which is very common with a new team book. We did it before with Duo. I didn't remember that the couple's names early on because they're fresh characters for me. That's when I end up doing rereads, like with series. Like this is going to be one where when issue 2 comes out, I'm going to reread issue 1 with issue 2 because it's more about knowing the players and linking them as the story progresses until eventually I own who everybody is. It's really cool that this is a story where I care about knowing who all these characters are. I'm very into this. I mean, this is fresh, though. It's something that's really important to me. You were mentioning the interconnectivity before. I remember when Valiant first came on the scene and Malibu was doing, around the same time Malibu was doing the Ultraverse line, and they were all exploring this idea of this tightly interwoven continuity, where if a character appeared in another book, it was something that was happening in the other book, like you were mentioning with Rocket, where you could see, more of the details of what that story was in Icon and Rocket. I like how this is doing elements of that, where season 1 of one book has elements that are bleeding over to others when it makes sense, but it's not being overly forced. You feel this idea of a larger world in all of these books, and they've done a really good job of doing this in a way where it's not overdone, it's not overforced. Wow. This may be one of my favorite out of the batch, this Blood Syndicate. And I would say Duo right now is my favorite. I think just because it was such a surprise out of it. But boy, it's hard because these Milestone books have all been so good. This one, I walked in with a lot of anticipation for it because of the fact that I've heard how good Blood Syndicate is, which I think it's more of a compliment to it. When you walk in with high expectations because of what you've heard and then it delivers high expectations, delivers on those high expectations beyond what you were thinking, it's like a next level kind of thing. And this really did a good job of that. I walked in thinking very highly about what I was going to be reading, and this did a good job with that. Good book. I can't wait for more.
I know. Every time I read a book, I'm like, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster.
I'd like to remind everybody about a show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. You prefer to get a hold of us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. And that leads into a Facebook fan page. It leads into a Twitter page. We are also amazingly proud to be a part of a great Facebook group community that really belongs to everyone who's a member of it. It's not ours. We're proud to be a part of it. And I want to thank everyone that participates there. I pull off of that from the show. And Jared Cardos in particular has been our MVP lately as far as posting DC news as he sees it. And we've been utilizing it in Speeding Bullets. And I want to thank him for being such a part of the podcast, because that really helps me, somebody archiving information and news that they think is cool and interesting. Because I want that to be more a part of the podcast. So, Jared, thank you. And for everybody who posts over there. People posting, like I mentioned Scott Jameson posting reviews and things over there for his website. I love people posting for their podcasts, their blogs, things like that. Please consider that an open community. If there's stuff of yours that you want to promote and you think it would be relevant to our audience, I like that to be a true shared community. So do not feel at any way, shape, or form that you can't promote your own stuff there. I like cross-promotion. We've enjoyed that as a podcast, Jim. As you well know, over the years, other podcasters have been very kind to us. I hope we have provided the same gateway for people to be able to utilize our podcast as a way to promote. And certainly do that if you call into the podcast ever and you have a podcast. You're welcome to shout that stuff out, or a blog or whatever. Don't shy away from doing that. I want people to know how to find you. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglet, what's going on at DCBS?
Right, I'm looking at the Funko Pop Eagly from Peacemaker. It's 20% off, $9.59. Plus, there's a bunch of other Funkos from Peacemaker and any other type of genre of entertainment that you enjoy. So check out DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, as I mentioned, the really good deals of the week right now. Jump on these. Batman Reptilian Hardcover, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. Death and Return of Superman Omnibus Hardcover, $150 regularly, 50% off, only $75. Superman Son of Kal-El, Volume 1 Hardcover, The Truth, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. Teen Titans by Jeff Johns Omnibus Hardcover, the 2022 edition, $150 regularly, 50% off, only $75. That is a great series, that Jeff Johns Teen Titans. If you miss that, boy, grabbing an omnibus and enjoying that and digesting it that way. Great artwork, great story. Ooh, pick that one up. That was a good one. You and I were both big. That actually, I think that started your Titans fandom, didn't it, Jim?
Yes, it did.
So just a terrific series. I want to remind everybody about our show contest. Please remember that it goes till midnight of June 8th. We'd love to have you be a part of it. It's a participation contest. Any way you participate, make sure that I'm aware of it. Feel free to use our email address to shoot me a message, or use Facebook Messenger to shoot me a message if you think that there's something that you participated in that I might have missed. My goal with that is to certainly, or if you want to private message me on Twitter, if you use Twitter or whatever, I don't care how you contact me. Just make sure you contact me, because I really want everyone who's been doing some cool things for us to get credit for it. There's still time for you to send something. It's midnight, June 8th, and we will announce a new contest at some point in time in July. So thank you very much for all you do to support our podcast. Our next episode, Jim, it's here. It's Dark Crisis. We're going to be talking about Dark Crisis, and we're going to check in on World's Finest. So we will see you then.
Bye!
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read, with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim?
Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think you're going to
Jim, how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's on